My name is John O'Keefe. I'm the Chief Technical Officer of Instantiations. I've been doing Smalltalk since 1989. I was the chief architect at IBM for Smalltalk, and since 2007 I've been working for Instantiations. So I'm going to give you an update on our most recent product release and where we're going in the future. So there'll be a brief introduction, then we'll talk about the current release that came out very recently, and then we'll talk about where we're going in the future. And then you can ask questions. So, we do a lot of development work, but we do a lot of non-development work too. And one of the things we do is we try and reach out to universities. We've worked in the past with Hasso-Plattner Institute. We're working now with the University of Chile, and we're always looking for other universities to form partnerships with. So if anybody here is associated with the university where you want to establish a partnership with a Smalltalk company so that your students can get experience working with a professional development activity, developing products for large customers, please contact me while I'm here, and I'll be happy to discuss whatever opportunities there might be. We also come to all the conferences as well as sponsor them. This is the 4th year I've been in Argentina, and I love coming here and meeting the students and understanding what you all are doing, because it helps us understand where we should be going. There is a Google group where if you want to ask questions of other users of Visual Age Smalltalk, you can interact there, or there's also a support group where you can interact with the developers. And finally, we have an ever-increasing set of videos, short videos that are done by James Robertson. Some of you may know him, explaining little snippets of how to use VA Smalltalk. They're between 2 and 5 minutes long. There's probably close to 100 of them now, and we keep adding. So that's a good resource if you want some quick updated information. So we have a new release out. Version 8.6 came out in August, the end of August, and it had some exciting things for us in it. We've replaced our text editor in the development environment with a new editor based on the Scintilla open source project. And this is, for us, really exciting because it's allowed us to expand our capability in text editing tremendously, and do it very easily. And I have a session tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the other room if you want to see a demo of some of the things that come with this editor. In addition, our development environment is primarily oriented toward developing on Windows, not developing for Windows, but a lot of our users do have Windows runtimes, and so they do want updated support for common controls. Now, so first the text editor. This comes in VA Smalltalk. All the various GUI elements are called widgets, and they're called common widgets because they have a common API, no matter what platform you're running on. So Scintilla is a new widget, common widget, supports the full Scintilla API as of version 3.3.3, which was the most recent version about 4 months ago. Some of the things that this got for us by doing this are full undo redo support, almost an infinite undo stack, and hardware acceleration of rendering with Microsoft Direct Write, because in Windows, starting with Windows 7, you can get accelerated writing of fonts, and this gives you both better performance and better looking fonts. Common widgets. This is the one that we worked on for version 8.6. We had a previous version of it, but we added new capabilities in version 8.6 for those who want to use calendars in their runtime applications. In addition to enhancing the GUI frameworks, we've made a number of additions to our development tools. I've already talked about the Scintilla browsers, and that's what I'll be showing tomorrow. We've done a number of other things here, and I will show you just examples of each of them very quickly tomorrow. One-shot breakpoints is a breakpoint that fires once and disappears. This is really, really convenient, especially if you want to put breakpoints in callbacks from the operating system, because you can't have a breakpoint in a callback that's active. So you have to disable it and then rerun the callback. This solves that problem. MonticelloImporter is a tool that we developed a couple releases ago, and we've made a few improvements in terms of trying to track the imported code in VA Smalltalk versus the code that was imported, and we do that by copying over the versioning information from the Monticello package into our notes field and defaulting the name of the application in VA Smalltalk to the same name it had in Monticello. So this makes it very easy to kind of know what version of an imported package that you have in VA Smalltalk. One thing that our users have asked us about over the years is how can, if we're running multiple development images, and many of our users do this, they run 2 or 3 development images at the same time, how can we tell all the windows apart? And the answer was, well, that's hard. But it turned out it was easy. So what we've done is we've given you an option to specify a prefix on the window titles of every window, every development window. So all the browsers in a particular image will have the same prefix. And it's different from the prefix, as long as you make it different, in all the other images. So you can very quickly in Windows look on the command line on the taskbar and see which transcript is the one that you want to choose, for example, to restore, or which application manager is the one that you're working with right now that's hidden behind 14 other windows. This was something that drove me crazy, and that's how it got into the product, actually, is because I finally just on a weekend said, okay, we're going to do it, and we did it. For the web interface, we now support multi-part forms in HTTP. So the servlet interface will take multi-part forms inbound only at the moment. And this is for forms or mixed input. So that would be text and images, for example. And this was done in support of C-side upload, which we didn't used to be able to do. We've also updated our port of C-side in this version to the most current at the time of the port available. And based on customer requests, we now once again identify in the configuration map. The configuration map is the moral equivalent of a Monticello configuration. which Monticello configuration the port came from. So once again, cross-referencing. In terms of database, database is very important to our users. Large corporate users are usually on DB2, oftentimes running on an IBM mainframe. If they aren't there, they're using Gemstone. Those are kind of the two most popular things. So we're always trying to keep our database support current, and 10.5 was the most current when we shipped. Also, we brought our glorp support up probably a couple or 3 years, if not more, in terms of its capabilities. So we're at the current level of glorp now, and we thank Alan Knight for all the changes and improvements that he made in glorp in that interim period. And part of what we added to this was experimental host variable support. Host variables are performance improvement if you're working with, can be a performance improvement if you're working with database. We're not completely satisfied with the implementation, so we call it experimental and we have it off by default. And we improved the error handling. glorp is a cross-platform object relational database mapping facility, and as such, the exception handling is, I'll say, generic. It's not specific to any one platform, which means it doesn't work well on any platform. And you know, as the exceptions percolate up through the various layers, they turn from very specific errors into generic database read failed errors. And so we're logging the low-level errors so that you can correlate them to these generic errors that you get out the top of glorp. In terms of installation, you know, when you buy any product, the very first thing you see is the product installer. And we didn't like our product installer very much. Our customers didn't like our product installer very much. You know, it was written almost 20 years ago in Smalltalk, and it really didn't look very good, and it didn't support UAC, user access control, on the newer versions of Windows. So we have redone the product installer. And as part of that redo, we've introduced a new tool that we call environments to manage the active development images. And I'll show you what that means in just a second. So, Windows installer. Built now with Install Shield. So it looks like any other installer built with Install Shield, which means people are very familiar with it. It provides install, repair, and uninstall. We didn't used to be able to do repair. So if you broke it, we got into situations where it wouldn't reinstall without registry editing by hand, and all of those problems are gone. We've also reorganized the code a little bit in terms of the install packages. It used to be the client package included downloadable documentation, and then there was a management library package that would go on a central server for a multi-user installation. We've reorganized it into code and documentation, which means in one package you get all the code and the code repository. In the other package you get all the documentation. So if you don't want local documentation, if you want to use documentation that's identical, that's available from our website, don't download the second package. The code package installs both the client code, that is your executable, your image file, and the manager repository by default. So by default, we are set up for a single user installation. And the reason for this is single user installations are where the beginners begin in general. So we want to make it as easy as possible for them. If you're doing a central repository installation, then you just turn off the manager when you install the client. Don't install it locally, and use that same download on your central repository machine to install the manager library. This is a picture of the start menu in Windows 7, I guess. It looks almost like the start menu for our previous version. The only difference is where it now says VA Smalltalk Environments, it used to say VA Smalltalk Development Image. So you no longer have direct access to a development image from the start menu. Instead, you go into environments and you start your development image from there. So these are some screen captures from Windows XP of the development of the environments tool. The graphic on the left is where you create a new environment. That is, you make a personal copy of a development image, and you set the customization parameters, such as where your manager library is, where you want the log file to be, what you want the short name to be, if you want a short name, and whether you're going to use certain specific functionality of the system, which means additional files need to be copied from their sort of template location to your particular environment. Okay? The second graphic shows an installed running development environment with several different development images available. And so there's a blue arrow on the left to start the image, and there's various icons on the right to change those customization parameters, to actually browse the environments folder, to get a new copy of the development image if you have somehow corrupted it, to create a desktop shortcut for this image if you prefer desktop shortcuts, and to delete the whole thing with or without deleting the files. So it seems to provide a lot of functionality. Our customers like it, but of course there's things they'd like us to add to it, and we'll be working on that in the next release. We have new platforms that we support. We're always trying to keep up with the most current platforms, so we support Fedora 19, Ubuntu 13, and Windows 8.1 on the RTM version. We actually haven't tested it on the out-of-the-box version, but we don't expect any issues there. So that's the contents of version 8.6. More exciting, I guess, for me is where we're going, because this is all past history to me. Now it's, what are we working on now? So we're doing our releases more or less once a year. We've become a little more flexible in terms of our scheduling in order to be able to accommodate larger development activities. We used to try and do 2 releases a year, and the effect of that was our development time frame got very short because there was a sort of a fixed overhead for installation testing, regression testing, product build, documentation build and upload that was more or less irreducible no matter how much content there was in the release. So by changing to more or less once a year, we can more than double the amount of content that we can get into a release. And we get our requirements from all over. We come here, I visit customers directly and talk with their management and their developers about what they want in the product. Many of the support cases we get really involve enhancements to the project, not bugs, and we collect those up. And also, we have internal requirements because there are things we have to do to support the things that our customers want to do. So this is sort of the candidate list that rolls from release to release, and we pick things off and do it and add new things on. The things that are highlighted on this list are the things that we're more or less convinced we're going to have in the next release. Other things on the list aren't quite in that state, and some things are really not for the next release. So we're doing portable colors and translucent colors, that is colors with an alpha channel. Portable colors is something that we need for frameworks that were developed on other environments than VA Smalltalk, because in other environments the color class actually supports GUI capabilities, whereas in VA Smalltalk there were two classes, color and graphic color, and graphic color was the only one that worked with the GUI. So it made it very difficult to port code. Seaside, we just continue to work with the Seaside group, making improvements in Seaside and porting what's being done. In terms of infrastructure, we have ported announcements sufficient for Rosal. So it's not complete announcements, but it's enough for Rosal to work. We have shipped zip, unzip support in version 8.5.2 actually, but only for Windows because we needed it for MonticelloImporter. We have various ideas about what we can do with database, including looking at a simple in-memory database like SQLite. We're looking at that very strongly, but we haven't committed to it yet. We're definitely improving our icon and image support. In particular, we're adding support for PNG, and again, we'll have the alpha channel so that we can do color blending. We're enhancing the Windows Common controls. Tree View is one we don't have yet, but we're planning on implementing, and we will be using it on Windows in the browsers. This gives us more capability and better performance than our existing Tree View control, which is not based on a native control in Windows. We have a whole long list of things already that we want to do the Scintilla browser, and I'll actually, during the talk tomorrow, I'll be showing some of the things we've done since 8.6 already in preparation for the next release. We've updated our emserve program. That's the support for the code repository. It's essentially a database manager. We now have full file system support on Unix, which means any file system that Unix supports, we support. That didn't used to be the case. And we support libraries larger than 2 gigabytes on Linux. Linux was the only platform where we had a restriction on the size of the library file that was smaller than 16 gigabytes. And finally, we're removing the multiprocessor check. I've talked to some people here about that actually. Many years ago there were some issues with library corruption, and we never figured out what the issue was, but they only happened on multiprocessor Windows machines. Well, so we disabled running on multiprocessor machines, which caused our customers a little bit of issue because it's hard not to buy a multiprocessor machine now. So along the line, we put an option in so that you could override this disablement, and people said, well, that's too much trouble, even though they all did it. And we haven't had a problem probably in 15 years. So we've just decided to do away with it. Because everybody's running with the disabled anyway. Rosal, we're working with Alexander Bergel and his group on the port to VA Smalltalk. On Unix, for this release, we're still using our original Smalltalk-based install package. For the next release, we'll be using the native platform install package based on RPM or deb packages. We've gotten a number of requests for improvements in environments already, and we'll be including those. There's many other things we want to do. In particular, improvements to our VM, and I can say that we have an active project underway with real developers assigned to it who have been working on 64-bit Smalltalk for a while. I won't say how long. So we're committed to do it. I just can't tell you when it'll be done. But we're doing it. And it's kind of going in stages. We have some improvements that we want to do to the existing 32-bit VM first that we've just about finished to enable it for 64-bit enablement. And in the process, we're making the code 64-bit clean, which means that for the VM itself, all we should have to do is change the compile switches, and we'll be good to go. That's an enormous simplification of what's really going to happen, but that's the theory. There's a lot of debugging after that, though, obviously. And that doesn't talk about the changes to the image that go along with it. We're looking at other things. We're always interested in new ideas. So, if anybody here is at all interested in VA Smalltalk, has tried it, it's free to try. You can easily get a download of it. I will be happy to hear about it while I'm here. Anything you'd like changed or improved, or you can always send me email. Now, how do you get it? Well, we prefer you buy it. Then I can keep coming to conferences. But before you buy it, you probably want to get a development an evaluation image and try it out. That's free. We also occasionally have development builds. That's just one of our weekly builds that seems to have interesting stuff that we could share. If you are a committer on an open source project, Smalltalk project, doesn't have to be anything to do with VA Smalltalk, we will be happy to give you a license. Or if you work for an educational institution and want to use the product in your classes or for research, we will be happy to give you an academic license, which also is no charge. And so finally, if you're confused by all of this and you want to send us email and ask questions, you can see me here or you can write to me after the conference. And we'll be happy to end your confusion. Okay, that's the story. Any questions?
Yes, about the roadmap for the new versions. Are you thinking something special targeting the mobile devices? Or only you thinking using CSI or some sort of web application to can use, for example, smartphone, iPad, iPhone? Okay,
so the question is, do we have any intention of ever having a VA Smalltalk version that would run on a mobile device? Is that right?
Yes.
No? We have no plans. I might as well also say we have no plans to run on a Mac, because I get asked that question almost every conference. And that has to do with the complexities of supporting the Mac UI, not with supporting the Mac itself. But for mobile devices, something like jQuery Mobile would be what I would recommend. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Why no Mac version?
Why no Mac? Because conforming to the API of the GUI interface on Mac is very difficult for us. It's very different from anything else. And so we haven't had anybody come to us and say, if you do a Mac version, we'll buy 100 licenses, or we'll buy 50 licenses, or even we'll buy 1 license. They will be happy to use it if we develop it, but nobody has seen enough value in it to be willing to offer to buy even 1 license. So we are putting our resources elsewhere. Other questions?
Apart from Linux, you continue supporting, for example, IX, Solaris, and so on.
So we support Windows, we support AIX, we support Solaris, we support Red Hat, we support Ubuntu, we support Fedora, we support SUSE. I don't think I left any out. And we run on just about any Linux. I'm unaware. I mean, internally we use Mint for a lot of our work. So, which is a spin-off from Ubuntu. But I know we run on kind of native Debian too. It's just a question of the amount of effort it goes into doing testing on all these platforms for every release. And once again, now that the releases are longer, we have more time to do that. So you may see more Linux platforms officially supported. What are the
paying customers?
Well, paying customers are on Red Hat and Ubuntu. That's where we see them. Other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. I'll be here the rest of the conference. So you can ask me questions later.